I know, the Alberta government is working hard to shift the narrative, but I suppose the question remains, is it really working? Are we telling the stories of, the unemployment rate that is non-existent in Fort McKay? Are we, talking about the wealth creation that's happening within the Mikisew Cree First Nation? I don't think the pro-oil and gas side of the debate is as good at humanizing all of this the same way the anti-everything crowd is great at putting kids up front to tell stories about how they're worried that the world is going to end. I mean, it's just such an emotionally charged debate. Mm-hmm. And I think we're just getting run roughshod over.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are, a lot of thought has gone into some of these ideas you're talking mm-hmm. about, especially for me over the past almost 12 years, having worked in the industry at certain times on the outside as a contractor, mm-hmm. but I still was able to see things. But I think you're correct. I mean, I think that we try to show that in the movie, how, say, that the environmental activist side is very good at presenting images that would shock and horrify most people. And if you play that moral high ground game, which I think is being played, as long as you have the moral high ground, you win. That game you can do very well if you keep showing shocking images. And I think that if you're going to show another side of this, then that has to also be revealed. So, key issues in regards to human lives being saved because of cheap energy with efficient, easy access. There are images that, that we should be seeing. What would happen if we didn't have that? Well, there are certain territories in the world that, you can go to right now to see what it's like to live in conditions where there isn't cheap, efficient energy. And that would shock most Canadians. And I think that a lot of Canadians live in a little bit of a bubble, not knowing how bad it can be to exist on this planet without that.
Sorry to interrupt you. And it's not the tidy utopia that the other side of the debate wants to paint it as. When you don't have access to cheap, reliable fossil fuels, well, what do you do for heat? What do you do for cooking? And there's no garbage pickup. And things that the environmentalist movement attributes to us, the dirty air, the dirty rivers, that's actually happening in places where they don't have access to cheap, reliable fossil fuels.
I agree. And that's one of the pieces. I mean, we wanted to go to Venezuela in this film to show in that we couldn't get in because it was just, could, but it was too dangerous at the time for us to go there to be able to show that side of, here's what happens when you deindustrialize. Like, here's what happens when these things, like what you're saying, cheap, reliable energy becomes problematic and able to get, like, here's how that looks. Yeah. We wanted to show people that, but that was very, very challenging for us to do. And again, I think what we, one thing it's important that I think, I mean, any kind of time, I mean, humans are going to make, if you walk out your door and step on the grass, you've made an environmental impact. So in the pursuit of energy, no matter what you're doing, there's going to be an environmental impact. Like, this is just going to happen. So we need to understand, no matter what we're talking about, there's going to be something. How do we minimize that? And I think Canadian oil and gas companies, I believe, are trying their absolute best. And I do believe that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I would suggest we're probably the best in the world at it. If anybody's ever spoken to an expat oil and gas worker, they'll tell you that much.
Yeah, and I think that's another part of this argument that kind of gets lost, where it's like, well, other parts in the world, there's some, there's some things going on that Canadians could really help. Yeah. Taking our technologies, where we're going, how we're thinking about things, and that in itself is a lot of good. But again, in a really kind of polarized world, it's so hard to have that debate if it's just all bad. Yeah. Well, I don't think it's that simple.
If you'd you'd like to get access to my show, as well as other great TV-style shows too, like Ezra's Nightly, Ezra Levant Show, and David Menzies' Friday night show, Rebel Roundup, just go to rebelnews.com/subscribe. That's rebelnews.com/subscribe.